Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players Podcast, In the Money Media YouTube channel. Peter Thomas Fornatale back with you from a tower high above the city of San Francisco. We're here to talk about goings-on in the southerly part of the state. However, Del Mar is the subject of this video, specifically the Pick Six on Saturday. Also want to remind folks, though, that this is the big contest weekend at Del Mar. Live money on track contest. $250,000. That's $250,000 in total prizes expected. 100% of that prize pool gets distributed back to players, including Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge and National Horse Players Championship entries. It's a two-day event, July 25th and 26th. If you go to the Del Mar website, dmtc.com, and click on Handicapping Contest, you'll find all the information right there. Make sure you register today and get an opportunity to win your fair share of what has really become, over the last few years, one of the summer's most important handicapping contests, really one of the most important handicapping contests all year. And to talk about the races that will be bringing this thing home on the Saturday portion of the card, we bring in a man whose work you know from InTheMoneyPodcast.com. He's a great follow on Twitter over at Kep's Corner. Those are with K's, if you didn't know. Dean Keppler, how are you, my friend?
P, it's great to be back here with you. How you doing?
Things are good, man. I've been enjoying it. I've apparently missed some gnarly weather back east. I've seen it, of course, watching the simulcast feeds on the phone. Del Mar, we haven't had bad weather, but we have had a few crazy horses. How do you, as a public handicapper, as somebody who picks as many winners as anybody out here in Southern California, how do you deal with it when you see one of these crazy horses win? Do you turn the page and move on, or do you go back and try to figure out, hey, did I miss something here?
I think, Pete, as long as I've been doing this, you kind of got to just turn the page and move on. You got to have faith in yourself that you did the pre-work up to the races, that did the best you can. But, Del Mar and I guess even Saratoga this time of year, you have to expect that total, chaos horse that's going to blow up your ticket, because they do. And it's just one of those things you got to live with. But that's what makes this racing out here in Southern California, especially this meet at Del Mar, so great, is that, you get that horse probably every other day or every day where, you probably overlooked for one reason or another, probably couldn't come up with, more traditional reasons why to have them. But those are the races that, if you're fortunate to have that on your ticket, kick off these monstrous pick fives, these frequent pick six carryovers, which has been great with the back to the $2 traditional bet, which I'm a big fan of. And I just think that's, it's just great for racing. I've never been a fan of the low increment bets. I think it allows for, too many people to stay alive, for lack of a better scenario. And I just think it helps the handicapper to focus more, not throw in those fringe horses that you could, afford on a 50 cent or $1 ticket that you ordinarily wouldn't have. And I just think it's better, for the better overall, Pete.
Yeah, lots to unpack there. But I think for me, Dean, the chief benefit of those higher minimums is keeping those computer players from being able to spread so efficiently and drain all the equity out of
Absolutely.
The pool, And it's and I think you're right. I mean, you don't want to. It's one thing to include a fuzzy, as we might say, that you think has a chance, but to just, I think a willy-nilly pressing of the all button isn't going to get it done either. Those higher minimums keep us from doing that as horse players. But I will say that the all button's been your friend in some instances this meet, because there's a few horses that have won that I would have only had.
Oh, absolutely. Instance. I mean, I frequently use the all button when I could find a really solid single or two. I think most, good players do that as well. And you say, oh, thank God I did, because there's no way I would have, if I had to narrow down that race, I wouldn't have had this horse on my ticket. I mean, there's, there's no shame in saying that.
I'll try to have my cake and eat it too, as well, where I might have, one combination where there's an all and all, but I will come back. And if there's a horse I like that I believe is going to be value, play a separate whole set of tickets using one or two other horses. So at least if I'm, I probably wouldn't do that with a favorite, but if there's like some mid prices, you can sort of stay above water and not even feel that bad that you use the all button. Of course, the worst feeling as a horse player, and we've all had this, is you hit the all button and the favorite wins. That's no good.
That seems to happen more often than not. That's for sure.
It's not an easy game, but we've got resources to help people out at In the Money. I'll want to give a quick shout out, because these same sequence of races we're talking about, you can also watch another video that we have on the In the Money channel. Our friends at the Gallop Out Ryan and Jackson, who do a fabulous job. Mikey P is their guest this week, and they're going to be going over these same races. So if you like what we have to say, or if you don't like what we have to say, you've got an alternative. Make sure you check out the Gallop Out on the In the Money Media YouTube channel. Those guys do a great job, a lot of knowledge, and always some fun back and forth. I'll admit I haven't listened to their show on these races yet because I didn't want to be unduly influenced, but that'll be on my list of things to check out a little bit later. Let's get into these races, though, Dean. We're going to talk about the final 6 races on the Saturday card. Things kick off with 3 and up fillies and mares, $12,000 claimers, going 6.5 on the dirt. How should we light this candle?
Yeah, Pete, I didn't have anything ultra creative in the first leg here. I'm kind of pretty predictable form-wise. I went 4-7-9. Pretty CC was my first pick here. I just think this horse makes a lot of sense based on its last race, runner-up try. Finished a much improved second there on the class drop at Losal. Now shortens back up to a sprint today over a track that he actually broke our maiden back if you go back in 2024. The barn sent out the winner last Saturday, so why not? I'm going to go with the 4 here on top. My second pick was Shady Stripes, broke through in a big way last time and start number 7 with a 8.5 length, 9/8 maiden romp on June 14th. A career best buyer there, 69. That number fits well here again, jumping up to face winners. And then I threw in the 9, shortening up to a sprint for third. This Clubhouse Ride 4-year-old looks like a threat from off the pace if we're able to get a little bit of a fast pace, which I think if you look at the projection, probably should have in here. Yeah. I think it's going to be pretty contested up front. But I went 4-7-9. Nothing, like I said, very creative in this spot, Pete, the kickoff, the pick 6.
I get all 3 of yours, especially the 9, because I do think a pace burn-up is in order. What I'm hoping is that the 2-runner Violences or gets the right kind of trip in this spot. Timeform US actually has her on the lead. But just looking through these PPs, it looks to me like her best races have come from just off the pace. And maybe she can get that exact kind of trip in here where I feel like plenty of these are going to be going for the front. Maybe she can sit just off and finish past them all. It's a very competitive race. There's probably more stories you could tell. Do you get my case on the 2 at all, or did you have anything against her?
Nothing against, the horse is 1 for 12. Looks like it makes sense at this level here on the class drop, Pete. But I just the reason I was against the 2, because I thought that he was going to get caught up, in a vicious early pace there. And I was looking mainly for somebody to come from at least a stalking position or from behind. And that's the reason why I just tossed the 2 out here. I think it's going to get burned up in an early pace.
I think if that is the way the trip unfolds, if the jock just goes forward, probably isn't going to be her day. But I was sort of just hoping, maybe against hope, that some of those earlier lines indicate that she could just sit. We'll see how it plays out in race number 6 on Saturday as we proceed to race number 7, where we've got Calbreds. It's a turf allowance going a mile. And this is a race where I like a horse quite a bit. The 6-runner, Stylish Acclaimed. We talk about turnbacks and distance so much as being a positive angle on the dirt. And doesn't really apply in the same way on turf, but sometimes it does. And maybe this is a case where it does, simply because I think a mile is going to really suit this horse. And I just felt like the last race was a bit better than it looks on the bare form. It was going farther, going those 9 panels, and just attacking and being right up on very fast early sectionals. This is a horse who's relaxed before, and I think that could be just the ticket in another race where there are plenty of speed types. I felt like Stylish Acclaim had a good opportunity to get the money for Jaramillo and Carla Gaines. How do you see it?
Yeah, Pete, I'm going with the same theory that it's going to be a horse from off the pace. And that's why I landed on the 10 here. Ventry Strand, stuck outside, but shouldn't be a factor for a horse that comes from off the pace. I think he's just going to break and sit back and try to make big run here. He has, one of the best late pace figures in this field. Usually comes with his big run, dropping at that small stake into the spot here. Comes off the mini freshening for Sadler. Barn that's done well here. And I just think he's going to set the right trip. And Rispoli has come back better than ever off his injury. Yep. Seems to be riding, at his top level right now. I just think the 10's going to fall into a really good spot here. A couple other ones I guess you can make a case for. I also threw in the 3, Aloquin Summer. And then as a third choice here, number 9, Double Jab, who I think is a kind of an interesting horse here. He's never gotten this far for Andy Mathis, but he exits back-to-back sharp tries, turf sprint tries here. And, he's got competitive buyers for this level. So, if he could stretch out to a mile, why not? He certainly makes a lot of sense in there. And he likes Del Mar. If you look at his record there, he's done really well over this turf course. Just the 1 mile is a bit of a question mark, but my top pick's going to be a 10 from off the pace here, Pete.
10, 3, and 9 for Dean. I'm going to try to get it done with the 6 in that spot. Probably will, as I so often do when I do a show with somebody, I will find ways of working their numbers onto tickets, because it's the most frustrating thing in the world doing this job, Dean. When you do a show, we do this prep, we put this stuff together, and then afterwards, if I ever get knocked off by a horse that a good case was made by somebody on a show I did, I can't. I have a lot of trouble with that. Sometimes it's inevitable, but always we'll try to work those horses onto tickets, and I think that's the way that many viewers should use these shows. We encourage people, of course, to do their own work, listen to us to maybe sharpen their own mind. Sometimes just hearing people talk about these races, it gives you your own ideas. Combine what you think with what we think. Hopefully you can cash a ticket here Del Mar Saturday, or maybe catch a winner in this Del Mar summer contest. I'll take this opportunity to tell people to leave us your ideas of the winners of these races in the comments. Maybe for this show, leave us your idea of the winner of the Bing Crosby. We'll get there in a minute, but not quite yet, because right now we got to talk about race number 8 on this card, where we're going a mile on the dirt. And Dean, I'm going to throw the ball right back in your court.
Yeah, here's another case where, I'm going with the pace projection in this race, Pete, which should be rather spirited, I think, up front early. And that's when I landed on number 7, Indispensable, for Sadler and Rosario, who had just a fabulous spring here teamed up. Rosario started off a little slow this meet, but he's got a lot of runner-up tries, which could have easily been wins. So, he could be certainly fighting for the top of the jockey standings if things have gone a little bit different for him. But this horse comes off a freshening for a great layoff barn here. Like I said, back off a 7-month, lands in a softer spot here, shortening back up to his preferred mile trip. And I also like the stablemate too, the 9 Midway Lane. It's 1-2 straight. Put a lifetime buyer up last time in 95 on June 5th when stepping up to face winners. And my third pick here is number 3, who makes a lot of sense, but, it's been plagued by Baffert layoff lines here, which you see with a lot of his horses. But this horse has done nothing wrong. He's lightly raised, the Justified 5-year-old. Came off a really long layoff last time for a sharp win at Los Al. Looks like it sets him up perfect here, stretching back out. He should like to go 2 turns by Justify. He makes a lot of sense in here. I'm going to go 7-9 as my top picks, and I threw the 3 in for third, Pete.
3 and maybe a little more of a backup, but yeah, you can see the obvious attributes of that one based on the figures and connections. I was with you on the 7. That was one of my 2 ideas I had in here, Indispensable. But my top pick was number 4, Frosty Indulgence. I thought this horse was very interesting. I thought the last 2 runs were better than they looked. This is a race with plenty of speed. We agree on that. Frosty Indulgence is a closer, and this is a closer who I think has been a little bit compromised on these last 2 races. It's a bit buried in the running line, but just looking at the sectionals late on, I really liked the way that Frosty Indulgence came home. And then 2 back, that looked like a spot where both the racetrack itself and the sectionals were favoring front runners. He still came running. I love it when a horse is coming out of these unfavorable pace situations and then might get a favorable one today. I had it 4-7. Contention really runs deep here, though. I certainly get the idea of throwing in more runners, including the 3 and the 9 that you mentioned. But honestly, anybody who wanted to make a case, if we were playing a group ticket, any horse anybody mentioned in here, I would want to work in as a backup. It's just not easy here in race 8 at Del Mar. But hopefully, for my sake, Frosty Indulgence or Indispensable can get the job done. We got 2 stakes on this card, and the first of them is up next. It's the listed level. We're going the Flying 5 on the turf, 3 and up, fillies and mares in the Daisy Cutter. And I thought that Lee's Baby Girl had a chance to get the best stalk and pounce trip. This is a race where I want – it's funny when you're talking about 5 furlongs to talk about finish in a race, but still some of these horses, they're so pure speed and drop off. I thought that Lee's Baby Girl might just have enough late pace, even going 5, to hang on, and enough speed to get in good tactical position. The 10 runner Kuwaitia was another one I thought was a little interesting. Just had a no chance trip last time chasing, I thought, and could be a one to benefit with just enough speed to get into a mid-pack closing position. If they really hit and are gassing out late, I thought the 10 had a chance to get up. I was 7 and 10 here. How do you see it?
Pete, this race I thought was just a mad scramble for me. I mean, I could probably make a case for what is there, 10 runners, probably 7 out of 10 in here, which is, not a good thing, but I had to narrow it down somewhere. And I ultimately landed on the 6 here, Amarita, who shortens up from 6.5 furlongs to 5 today, for Mandela off a 3-month break. And I just think this horse looks ready to fire off this little minute freshening. I love this best of 95, 4 furlong drill and 46 and 3 over the main track. I guess that was on July 17th. I think this indicates that this horse is ready to go. He's a multiple winner over, I'm thinking of the second pick here, but this horse is actually 1 win over Del Mar. So, he likes the grass course here. He just looks well prepped for this. I like Mandela off the layoff as well. And I just had to land somewhere. So I went with the 6 here. I also used the 4-2, who is a multiple winner over the track condition. Tahini, I think, is a logical fit off the runner-up effort on June 14th. Earned a solid 89 turf buyer. Rispoli replaces Fresu, who lands on my top choice. And it's a little, I don't usually like to put a big decision-making into musical jockeys, but I thought that was a kind of an interesting move there, that Fresu stays on the 6 here. And it kind of leaned me that way. But I went 6-4-2. I think the 2 is probably perhaps the speed of this field, but there's a case to be made for some others in here. Coming off a 6-month layoff for Miller, who's, got his horses geared up always for this meet. And he's, you leave him off your tickets and, you probably come back and bite you there. So I went 6-4-2, but like I said, this race to me was really puzzling. And, like these sprint races are, you could usually go in a million different directions. The trip usually makes everything at these 5 furlong sprints at Del Mar. So, I wouldn't talk off anybody on any horse that they liked in this spot, Pete.
It's a measure of how competitive these races are, how different our numbers are. I feel like we're usually, we always have disagreement. Horse players see things differently, but there's usually, a little bit more in common.
Yeah, it's almost like we have different days that we're looking at.
Yeah, but it's the races themselves. I mean, I think the fact that we're both, it's not like we're each coming in here being like, it's only these 3. No, it's only these 3. It's both of us saying it's really tough, but and throwing our numbers out there. But that could be good. That if when combined for the tickets we're going to play on this card, hopefully it'll yield some results. Sometimes you need a little bit of that creativity, outside the box thinking, and it can't always come from within. We've got the featured race of the day up next. We'll see if we're in alignment here. I have a feeling this is another one where we could easily, you could have 3, I could have 3, and they wouldn't be the same 3 because it's a competitive running of the Grade 1 Bing Crosby. Win and you're in action, by the way, for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. We're going 6 furlongs. Dean, who's your idea of the winner?
Yeah, Pete, I tried to, I went a couple different ways in here, and then ultimately I landed on, one of the logical horses, with this is number 6 Cornucopian. Yeah. There's a few others in here, though, I could make a strong case for. This horse comes off a really, really sharp effort last time for Baffert at Churchill, and that last win, career best 103 buyer. Looks strong doing it, comes back to Del Mar here, and I think he just probably, ultimately I landed on him because I thought he was going to get the right trip in here from a stalking position, perhaps about 3 or 4 lengths off the lead. And, gets Hernandez back here, who has rode the horse to victory as well. And, he's going to be my tepid choice in here. But I also like the one here who's lightly raced, Maximum Bourbon, who comes in here for Phil D'Amato, shipping in from the Midwest. Makes a lot of sense to me. Back-to-back triple-digit buyers for this horse here. His last race was in a pretty quick time, sub 109, 6 furlongs. Drew off by nearly 6 lengths. He's got to start from the rail, which is not always the greatest position, but I think he's got enough tactical speed. He's going to probably have to be sent out of there by Rosario, which he usually does when he has a horse that needs to be to the front. He's usually pretty aggressive. And for me, the 5 Stronghold also makes a lot of sense. It's won 2 straight to start this campaign this year. A solid runner up in 7 furlongs, Pat O'Brien, last August over this main track. Could be another forward move forthcoming on this horse here. making third try off the form cycle. Also makes a lot of sense. So I ultimately landed on this. I went 6-1-5, but like I said, not that I reluctantly picked the 6, but I just think after going through this race a couple of different times, I think this horse is going to just sit the right trip today, Pete.
Cornucopian is the one that I have, one of the two that I want to talk about, but I actually made my second pick. I think he's a deserving favorite, the horse to beat. It'll be on all the tickets. I think there's a Dr. Venkman story to tell in this race. Now, I know the overall record going 6 isn't great, but his best race came going 6 in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year. We know he loves it around here, but the real angle that sent me to Dr. Venkman was in a race where I feel like every horse wants the same kind of trip, just sort of right up, stalking and pouncing. I think Dr. Venkman will be the one in the flight behind that, and that might just work out well with those other horses potentially scrimmaging in a scrum up there ahead of him. This is a course he loves. I think the idea that I don't think he's really a 7 furlong horse. I think he's just as good at 6, despite that 0-for-3 mark. And I think he's going to pull the right kind of trip in this spot. And I'm hoping the old boy, the 6-year-old Dr. Venkman, can get the job done in the Crosby and head back to the Breeders' Cup Sprint. What was your thought on him? Were you worried about? A lot of people I've talked to have been a little worried about the distance for him. Why was he not among your selections, or would he have been your 4th?
Yeah, he was actually fourth. If okay. I had to pick a 4th horse, he was in there as well. But I don't know. I mean, he's making a second start off that long layoff, so you think he should move forward in this spot here. A 4-time winner over this course, so he loves Del Mar. Makes a lot of sense in here, Pete. And I simply love Mark Glatt too. So
yeah, he does some good work out there. Let's move on to our nightcap here. Dean, we've got what I thought in a sequence when we've said every race, this is competitive, this is competitive. This was the one I really thought I wanted to spread in. We've got optional claimer 50s with a non-winners of 1 condition attached as well. We're going a mile and a 16th on the turf for these fillies and mares. When it comes to all these late picks, including that $2 pick 6 I know you love at Del Mar on Saturday, how are we going to get paid?
Pete, in a race that, you could probably use 6 or 7 horses in here, I'm going to stand with a horse that makes a lot of sense just because I'm probably going to be spreading, a lot in the earlier sequences of these races that we just went over. So I just went with number 3, Lady in Paris. Just landed on the wrong side of that head bob last time when making a first start stateside here. Off an 8-month layoff back on May 25th. This 4-year-old just figures to move forward off this race here, gets a nice inside draw, rattle ground. I think this is going to sit the trip, save a lot of ground. I think it's probably the best horse in this field. So I'm going to stand alone here with the 3, Lady in Paris, off that last sharp try for D'Amato, who's also had off to his typical fast start here at Del Mar. His horses are all coming off their bench. They're all firing. And I think this horse is going to do the same in here. Couple other ones I use behind him, number 2 and the 10, but I'm going to stand alone with the 3 here, Pete. You can make a case for several other horses in here, but like I said, I'm going to be spreading early, and they got to take a stand somewhere, and I just think this is the right spot for this horse, and I think it's going to be a pretty logical single, I think.
The pace is really interesting in this race, right? Time form has it favoring front runners, and that may be right, may be wrong. And the issue is you've got these 2 stretch out sprinters, both of whom I want to use on my tickets because I think there are scenarios where either the 7 America's Mark has a pace edge or the 6 Sweet Gal of Mine just gets a perfect trip on or near the front end. Sweet Gal of Mine has those 2 good figures in the last 3 races. America's Mark has attacked fast paces twice going shorter, but I think, I want scenarios where either of those horses get the job done. I definitely, in case they end up dueling or the pace is unexpectedly fast, I want Lady in Paris on the old best horse angle, which I do think could apply. But there's also a scenario where if the time form idea is right, if the 6 and 7 try to back it down, I was worried about maybe there not being enough pace for Lady in Paris. And then I'll mention a 4th one as well. Betty Davis Eyes I wanted a little bit of. I was not overly impressed visually with that stateside debut, but I think that UK form is okay. Those Nottingham summer maidens, early autumn maiden races, they often are really good. She won that one pretty well. if I look down on my PPs after this race and Betty Davis Eyes has won, I would not feel good heading to dinner. So I think I want a little 8 as well. I'm going to call it 7, 6, 3, and 8. And hopefully one of them can get it done for us. And hopefully some of the horses we talked about in the show can get something for us in terms of this pick 6 or late pick 5 or whichever one of these bets. They also have these, there's the other bets at Del Mar now, connecting with the higher minimums and low takeout, connecting the last 3 races and the double that I'm also very interested in trying to get involved in. The $3 late pick 3, that's an exciting bet. That $5 late double, both of interest. Any closing thoughts from you, Dean, before we send this one home?
Yeah, I would just like to tell everybody that, keep your eye on in the Ship and Win, which is, been around for a while now, but a lot of these horses coming in from the Midwest, specifically Kentucky, South Florida, they're not here just for the scenery and the wonderful weather. These guys got good intentions. A lot of those horses are running well. So, always give them a second look because, like I said, they're out here, to win. They're shipping in to win. It's an incentive program that's worked out really well, for this circuit out here. And, a lot of those horses are live for sure.
We used to both work at DRF, and there was and they still have it, of course, the people who write the closer looks. And they used to have a lot more. You remember they would have all these like little phrases they'd use. They would say something like "here for a reason, not the season." I think that applies to these winning your in horses. I will remind folks one more time about the Del Mar Summer Betting Challenge. Go to dmtc.com. Make sure you get involved. Make sure you check out Dean's analysis of Del Mar every racing day. You can find it directly at inthemoneypodcast.com. You can also connect to that through the handicapping area on the DMTC website. He does a fabulous job. You hear the work he puts into it. Dean, always a pleasure to have you on these airwaves, my friend.
Thanks, Pete. Great to be here. You.
Thanks one more time to our friends over at Del Mar and to Dean. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.